Hello, welcome to the CaFÉ webinar. My name is Justine Chappell. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager for CaFÉ. Today we have another edition of our Q&A with CaFÉ support. As you know, we asked you to submit questions to anything related to hosting your call for entry. So thank you to anyone who's here today that submitted a question, and I look forward to answering them for you. And if you didn't submit a question, we've got some great content for you to learn about various things in CaFÉ. So should be good today. And yeah, based on the questions that were submitted, the key topics that we'll cover include promoting the call in CaFÉ, accepting multiple images per artwork, reviewing entries as an administrator, and conducting the jury. We've got a lot of questions about the jury, so we'll just go through kind of quick tutorials about things like that. So the first question that was submitted to our Q&A is, after posting a call for a residency, does some kind of notification go out to the CaFÉ membership? How will they be alerted to a new posting? So every call on CaFÉ is treated with the same opportunity for exposure. When you publish your call, there's no immediate notification that gets sent to CaFÉ artists. However, there are a couple of ways that your call does get put in front of artists. There's also an opportunity to market your call further at an additional cost. So we'll go through all of that today. First of all, just to note, once you publish your call, let's go into the admin side actually. I'm going to pull up one of our demo calls here. Let's go into the call editor. So once you publish your call, you should get an email that comes from the system with the call URL, and that's also in your call editor. It's right here at the top under the call overview section, the call URL there. This is the URL that you can use to share with people in your networks, and you can post about it on social media. This is the link that will take you, let's see when I click on it, this link takes you to your unique call details page so that you can use this to, share information about the call. So once your accept application date arrives, folks will be able to apply to this call, but even before then, you might be able to, before then you can publish your call, share this URL to get some traction and some excitement. And then as soon as the accept applications date, which is this first date under important dates, as soon as that date arrives, the apply now button, which is right here, becomes available so that folks can start applying. So that's one way to kind of gain some momentum and some interest in your call, is to publish your call ahead of time if you're, if you have the time, and you can use that URL to share it out. Once the accept application date arrives, another thing happens. If we go to the home page, let's go to the call details page or the call listings page. This is the page that lists all of the calls that are available to apply on CaFÉ. So this is where artists go to search for call listings, to find the one that they want to apply to. And a lot of them do a lot of browsing. We have, obviously right now, we have 325 open calls on CaFÉ. So we have various filters and things available for artists to just browse and see what they want to apply to. So when your call gets published, again, there's no immediate notification that goes out to our CaFÉ list of artists, but artists do come here and your call will be listed here. So you can, folks can search by, call name or anything in your short description if they know some keywords, or they'll be listed under certain, call types. They can go to exhibitions and see what they want to apply to, and so on and so forth. So that's the kind of, to answer the question, while there is no immediate notification that goes out, your call does get listed in front of CaFÉ artists. However, there is something that we do when your call is published, and that is every Tuesday, we send the CaFÉ Weekly Opportunities notification. This goes out to any artist that is opted in to receive this email. We currently have about 96,000 artists who are opted in to receive this every Tuesday, so it's a pretty big list. And this email includes two categories: newly listed calls and calls with upcoming deadlines. So for the newly listed calls, these are calls that have been published and have had their accept application date set to, the 7 days prior to that particular Tuesday. So if you publish your call the following Tuesday, you'll be included in the newly listed calls. It's important to note, though, that this is based on your accept application date. So again, when you publish your call, or when you submit your publish request to the CaFÉ team, and they'll review your call. You'll want to make sure that your accept applications date is set to either in the future for when the call should actually be posted to artists, or if it's in the past while you're publishing your call, you'll want to update that to the current date. That's because when your call gets published, if this accept applications date is far in the past, it's maybe a week or more in the past, that means when that following Tuesday arrives, the accept applications date is not going to be within that 7-day window, so your call is not going to be included in this notification list. So you'll want to make sure that the accept applications date is either current or in the future. So once your call gets published and the accept applications date has arrived, that following Tuesday, you'll be included in this list. The other section of the opportunities notification is the upcoming deadline. So this lists all the calls that have deadlines coming up within the next 3 to 15 days. So as your deadline approaches, you'll be included in that section of this email. This is a little screenshot on the right of what the email looks like, although if you were to scroll down, you would see the upcoming deadline section. And your call would be included in that either once or maybe twice, depending on where your deadline falls within the week. Again, since it's sent every Tuesday, it just kind of depends where your deadline falls in that 3 to 15-day window. Again, it's based on the deadline date, so that's how the system knows to include your call. So your call is automatically included in this email when it falls within these parameters listed here. So you don't have to do anything to initiate your inclusion, with the exception of checking, your accept applications date and your deadline dates to make sure everything's, published. And it's free for every CaFÉ customer to have their call included in this. The only exception is that we do not include invite-only calls, which is obvious because it's not open to everybody. And we also don't include calls that have rolling deadlines because it's just open on a general period. They're not included in this date-specific kind of list of deadlines. So this notification really serves as a snapshot of the calls newly listed or closing soon, and it does not replace the full CaFÉ listings page that we have. It's really just about providing an opportunity to show artists what we have available that are, newly listed and coming up. So it's important to have your dates set properly so that you're included in those. But if you have any questions about that, of course, you can always reach out to our team. So that is the one way that you are automatically included, or one of the ways that we are putting your calls in front of artists in a dedicated email. However, if you want to do a little bit more marketing, we have the promotional e-blast option to directly market your call to CaFÉ artists. So with this option, if you purchase an e-blast, we will send a dedicated email that contains information about your call only. So I'm going to talk through the e-blast process to take an opportunity to explain that for everyone that might be listening today or watching the recording later on. The e-blast feature, or option, I should say, is a great way to directly target artists that you want to target. So let's talk about how to set up the target audience for this. So when you request your e-blast, and we'll talk about the entire process towards the end of this section, you'll choose your audience. You'll choose your audience. So you get to choose the geographic location, whether that be based on countries, regions of the US, or states. And you get to choose the artistic disciplines of the artist you want to target. So you decide who this e-blast will go to. So you can, make it broad or narrow it down. So artistic disciplines, you can see we have 32 listed here. These are the disciplines that when the CaFÉ artist signs up for an account, they will choose up to 4 disciplines that they identify with or that their work is associated with. So they get to choose, which disciplines they consider themselves a part of. That is, set with their profile, and that allows us to target our opt-in list for our promotional e-blasts and narrow down who is getting specific emails. So right now we have about 63,000 artists who are opted in to receive promotional e-blasts, and they're all within these different disciplines. When you choose your target audience, the number of artists within that geographic location and that have the artistic disciplines that you selected, that will determine the price of the e-blast. So here's our pricing model. It's $100 for every 9,999 artists. Again, we have up to 63,000 artists. So for every almost 10,000 artists, it's $100. So it goes up from there. You can see kind of some examples here. If you're to target 7,800 artists, or I should frame this as if your geographic location and disciplines that you chose would reach 7,800 artists, the e-blast would be $100. If the criteria you chose would equal 19,500 artists, it would be $200, so on and so forth. It's kind of just showing you some breakdowns. So that's how the pricing works for this. And I'll talk about the process for how to, get something that works in your budget. We'll talk about what that looks like. But the next part of eBlast to know is send dates and availabilities. So CaFÉ will send eBlasts on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. You'll see we don't have Tuesdays in there because that's the day that everyone gets that weekly opportunities notification. We also don't send them on major federal holidays. And then only one e-blast is sent to a specific group of artists per day. And what that means is if you were to purchase an e-blast for, let's say the Midwest, no one else can target the Midwest, the artists in the Midwest that day. Only your e-blast would be sent to them. And that's for a couple different reasons. One, we don't want to blow up artists' inboxes and have them receive all these promotional e-blasts about all these different calls. We just want it so that they can get one per day because they're opted in, and we don't want to lose their attention there. The other reason is we want to keep this service exclusive. So in a way that your call would be the only information that they're receiving, so that when you spend your money on this e-blast, you know that you're going to be the one getting the attention on that day by a specific artist. Now, we might sell 2 different e-blasts on the same day, but they're never going to go to the same group of artists. So again, if you were to book one for the Midwest and someone else books one for the South, we would still send that, but they would be obviously going to separate audiences. So again, when you purchase an e-blast, you're purchasing one e-blast, which is one email that will get sent to the chosen target audience. And we have a maximum of 2 e-blasts that you can purchase per call per month. So, we just want to keep this available to everybody. So we have a little bit of a limit here, but you can essentially send 2 e-blasts for your call per month if you wanted to. But the price would be, the listed price for every time that you send the e-blast. So based on this availability, e-blasts are reserved on a first come, first served basis, and the date is not reserved for you until your payment is received. Again, we're going to go through the whole process of how you would do this, but just note that e-blasts fill up fast. We have a our e-blast service is very popular and folks like to use it. So we do fill up, I would say at the minimum 2 weeks in advance, but sometimes we fill up, 4, 5, 6 weeks in advance. So it's important to request your e-blast as soon as your call is published. That way you can get on the calendar and we can have an available date for you. Let's talk about what the e-blast will look like. So this is the list of the content that will go into the e-blast. And on the right, you'll see a real example of an e-blast that went out last week or earlier this week. I can't remember. So the e-blast itself has kind of a fixed design, but you get the chance to customize a few things here and there. At the top, we'll have the logo pulled from your call itself. So you'll want to upload a logo to your call editor. We'll have the title or the name of your call. We'll have some of those basic details, call type, eligibility, entry fee, deadline, so that when artists look at their email, they can see if they are, if they're eligible or if, they have time to apply. Then in the middle there, you'll see the short description. This is pulled directly from your call editor, but you get the chance to customize this or give us some different text if you want to kind of target that description a little bit more for the text. Then at the bottom, towards the bottom, you'll see the Apply Now button. This will be linked to the call details page on CaFÉ so that folks can go in to view your full prospectus and apply. And at the bottom, you'll see the organization contact info. Again, this pulls straight from your CaFÉ call. So you don't have to do any work to create the e-blast. All you have to do is tell us you want one, and we'll generate all this content for you and put it together into a proof for you to take a look at. And then again, you can customize the copy or the text within the e-blast itself so that it can be a little bit more customized for whatever you need it to be. So let's talk about the process real quick. When you request your eBlast, the first thing you want to do is fill out the form. So I'm going to put the form link in the chat. So the process is you'll submit this form here and you're going to fill it out. Let me actually go to the form itself so I can kind of walk you through it. First, you'll agree to the terms, so make sure you read through all of those. It's a lot of the information that I just gave you. Then you'll put in your contact information. Obviously, it's self-explanatory. You'll give us some call details so we know, what call to reference in CaFÉ. Then you'll have a chance in the form itself to give us some different information than the short description. So we'll pull the short description by default, but if you want something different, you can click yes, and then you can paste the short description of what you want in the eBlast in this form. And then the eBlast details, what you'll do is you'll give us a budget for what you're looking to spend. And if you have a discount for running a promo, which we are not right now, you can put that in there. You'll then give us a date or a month of when you want to send the eBlast. So, you can choose the month that you're hoping to send it out, but just note that because it's based on first come, first serve, we might not have availability in the month you selected, but that kind of helps us give an idea of, when you want to send it. And then you'll tell us about the target audience you want. So you'll tell us if you want to send it by state, region, or internationally. Let's say you choose by region. There's 4 different regions in the US that we've separated our list out from, and you can choose, which region or regions you want to target. And then you'll select the artistic disciplines that you want. So I would just choose anything that you think pertains to your call or any artists in specific disciplines that you want to see this eBlast. So let's say, if you're doing a general exhibition, maybe you get a lot of painters, so you don't really want to target painting. You really want to target, drawing, photography, printmaking, all those things. You can maybe indicate that for your target audience so it's more concentrated on those folks. Once you submit this form, at the bottom you'll submit it, it will come to the team and we will respond to you via email with a list of either pricing options for how many artists are in that criteria you selected, and therefore what the price of the eBlast will be. And if that's different from the indicated budget on the form, we'll provide you with a second choice, third choice, however many choices that we see fit to get you in the budget that you want. So you'll have a chance to tell us if you want a little bit different criteria than what was suggested, or you can just choose from the list of options. But that's the first step is, requesting the eBlast and then picking the price or the criteria of the eBlast itself. Once that is confirmed and good to go, we will send you the proof of the eBlast, and that will be generated again from the call details. We'll send you the proof. You can approve it as is, or you can tell us if you want any edits or changes. We'll get back to you with the updated proof. We'll work through that until your proof is approved. We'll also, at the same time, send you a list of date options that we have open, so you can choose which available date we have for when you want to send your eBlast. And then once that proof is approved and the date is chosen, then we'll do the payment process where we'll send you the invoice, and then you have to pay the invoice in order to schedule your eBlast and have that date officially reserved for you. And then once payment is submitted and received, you're good to go. We will send out that eBlast on that specific date, and we'll copy your email on it so that you get a copy in your inbox of the eBlast. So that's a little bit about the eBlast process. A couple things to note, or at least one thing to note, is that at this time we don't track open and click rates of eBlasts. We have our list. We know it's up to 63,000 artists, but we are currently developing a tool to help us track how many people open it, how many people click on it, and that's something we'll roll out in the future with this eBlast option. That was kind of a long-winded answer to this first question about promoting the call in CaFÉ, but I just wanted to give a chance to talk about that option there for you. Question number 2, are there any plans to allow for multiple images of a piece? Most of our calls are juried by each piece, and it would be very helpful to allow multiple images of each one. The answer is yes, we do have plans to allow for multiple images of a piece. If you've been with CaFÉ for a while, you know that the answer's been yes for a while now, but it really is on our roadmap for this year. It's been on our wish list for a long time. So I can't promise anything about when this feature would be released, But I do know that, again, it's on our official roadmap to be worked on, released by the end of the calendar year. You know, things happen. It's a pretty complicated development piece to allow multiple images of individual pieces of artwork, just kind of with the structure of our system. So fingers crossed it all goes well and we can get this functionality ready for you all, because we know a lot of folks do want to accept multiple images or detail views of an artwork. So that's the answer to the question, is yes, we do have plans. But I'm not going to stop there. I do want to kind of provide some context for anyone who might be watching this webinar now or later and not know what I'm talking about here. And this will be my chance to educate on the jury types in CaFÉ. So in CaFÉ, there are two different ways to score and collect artwork. And I'm going to go to our jury types help guide here to demonstrate this a little bit. This is a whole help guide that explains the differences between jury types, so that if you're ever confused about what you need for your call, you can come here and kind of read through the examples. So we have scoring by art and scoring by application. These are the two different types, and your call has to be in one of them. So scoring by art is when you need to select single pieces of artwork. This is where artists will submit images, and then every image will then be separated into separate entries so that each entry gets its own score. This is when you are really judging the individual piece of art against other pieces of art. Scoring by application is when you need to select individual artists based on their body of work. So when artists submit images, their samples, their photos will be grouped together into one application that is then juried as a whole and given one score. There's a caveat that with that option, you can then allow the artist to submit multiple applications, each with their own group of images. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about here today. But those are the two differences, is when, and there's some examples here, is that when artists submit images, you either get one image per application or you get multiple images per application. So folks that need to score individual pieces of artwork for like an exhibition, they would do scoring by art to be able to separate those so that every art gets a specific score. However, to answer this kind of question, the current workaround for accepting multiple images of the same artwork is by choosing scoring by application, in which the number of work samples will be the number of images for each piece. So you'll have artists submit, let's say, 3 to 5 images of one artwork in one application. Then you can allow the artist to submit multiple applications. You can have them submit up to 20 separate applications, and then they'll enter multiple times. So they'll enter one with 3 to 5 images of one artwork. They'll submit and pay and check out. Then they'll go back and submit a second application with 3 to 5 images of the second piece of artwork they're submitting. And that way, when a juror is reviewing, here's some examples of what it looks like on the juror side. When a juror is reviewing, they'll be able to see all of the images of the same artwork in this case, and submit the score for that one particular piece, and then so on and so forth. That said, we know that this is a workaround option, in that case, there's some caveats. One is that the artist has to enter multiple times. They have to go back and repeat the process, which kind of defeats the purpose of what CaFÉ was made for, in which they could just enter all their pieces at once and be done with it, kind of that universal application. So in this case, that's not necessarily true. And then the other caveat really is that, as they apply multiple times, they might have to pay an entry fee multiple times. And then you might go into new workarounds for that, which is creating coupon codes for the second and third entries, or making it so that they can submit multiple applications, for one price. So that, it is a little bit of I wouldn't say complicated. It's pretty straightforward. A lot of sculpture folks use this, or sculpture walk opportunities. They'll use that method for accepting multiple views of a sculpture, but there are just some things you have to be concerned about. So we do hope to create a way to submit multiple images of a single piece and still have it separated and scored as you would. So I would say consider this method. If you are accepting mostly 2D art, you can consider that workaround, but it might just be easier to only accept one image per piece. And now jurors can actually zoom in on the artwork image when they're scoring to see greater detail. So as long as the artist uploaded a kind of a large enough image, the juror would be able to see some extra detail there. So that kind of helps as well, and until we have this new feature. I'm going to head to our next question, which is to audit the entries to be sure there aren't any invalid entries. I need to be able to enlarge each painting. We get over 250 individual watercolor paintings. I want to be able to open the entire gallery and page through them. This is a great question. So this gives me a chance to talk about how you as an administrator can review the entries before the jury starts. And there's a few different ways to do this, which I'm going to show them all to you, and you can pick the version that you like. So you can review the entries as an administrator, or you can also review them as quote unquote a juror in the jury side of CaFÉ. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And let's get in there. So the first option as administrator, let's log into our CaFÉ account. I'm going to go over to events management and pull up the entries that we want to review. So the first way of doing this as an administrator, because there are a couple different ways, is by going to the applications, and obviously you'd be reviewing those in the received status. The first way of if you're just focused on the artwork and you're not really concerned about the application itself, the artist's location or answers to any of the questions, if you just want to look at the artwork to make sure that it is eligible to be in this contest, then you can look at the slideshow. So I clicked on received. That pulls up all the applications in the received status. And then I'm going to click on view slideshow. And it's going to open up a new tab of the slideshow of the artwork. As you can see, it's pretty small, but you can click on it and that will show an enlarged version of the image, and it'll give you kind of the title of the piece at the bottom. So this is the way to review it in the admin slideshow, and you can just review it. You can close it down. Let's say it was ineligible. You can then make note of the application ID number or the applicant name. The other thing you can do is just click a different status right here. If it was ineligible, you can just say, I'm going to put it into the withdrawn status here, or maybe even declined if you prefer the declined status, and click update. That would change it to the declined status. Then on the right here, it's kind of hard to see, but you'll have the next option, and that will take you to the next artwork, and you can do the same process. So this is for the slideshow, and this is something that you can do to just review the images all in one go. Click in, click out. It's, a little bit of clicking, but not too bad, and you can review all of the artwork that was submitted. The other way of doing this, if you do need to reference the entire application, is by, again, going to your list of received, and then you'll click on the application ID number of the first one in the list. That will take you to the beginning. This takes you to the application page, so you can see all of the form answers, all of the contact info, and you'll get the artist statement here as well. And then again, in here, you can click on the artwork sample and view the full-size image and review it like that. And then on this page, if you wanted to update the status, you can change the status here. This one, again, was already declined. But you can change the status, click Next Application. You'll be taken to the next one. Review it. You can get a little more details about the artwork in this one too. And then come up here and change the status if you need to, and then just complete your process. One thing you can also do is if they are eligible and you've reviewed it and it's good to go, you can actually change it to the reviewed status. And this just helps you keep track of those that you have reviewed versus those that have still just come in the received status. So you can do it that way. So that's how you review it as an administrator. There's two different ways, two different options, and that allows you to go through all of them and kind of gives you an enlarged version of the image to be able to review it. The second main method you can do is set yourself up with a juror account so that you can review it in the juror portal of CaFÉ. So you'll go to jury administration, or you can go on jury and then jurors to find your list of jurors for your account if you maybe already have one. But if you go to jury administration, if you don't have one already, you can just click on add juror. This will take you to a page this is just autofilled, to fill in the username, create a username for yourself and a password and put in your info, and that's going to create a juror account for you. It's really nice to have a juror account because you can access it and just see exactly what the jurors will see. Even if you're not scoring, you just can access it and just be able to help your jurors if they run into any issues or anything like that too. You would be able to know exactly what they're looking at. So you can create a username. I would recommend differentiating it from your administrator username because you'll have to make sure you're logging in with whichever one you want to use in the moment. So you can just create one for yourself. Or if you have one already, you can find yourself in that previous list under jurors and reassign yourself or let's actually do that version. You would find yourself in this list and then click view and then make sure that your call that you're viewing today is checkmarked and then click save. And that would make it so that your account is actually associated with the specific call that you are looking at. So if we go back here, you'll see that this is the one I just added. Okay, so that's how you set yourself up with a jury account. The other thing you want to do is start the jury. So you'll set it to in progress so that you actually have access to view the entries. This doesn't make it so that artists can't apply anymore. Artists will still be able to apply. However, the only thing with this option is that when artists are in their CaFÉ account, if they've already applied, instead of seeing their application status as received, they'll see their application status as jury in progress, which will make them think that the jury started before the call even closed. I'm not sure how many artists are going in there and questioning that, but that just could be one caveat to this option. So you could wait until after your call closes to do this initial review process. So just make sure your jury status is set to in progress. You could also set your scoring rate to maybe like yes, no, maybe, which would allow you to kind of indicate some ineligible entries a little easier. I would set your scorecard style to slideshow view. I just think it's the best way to be able to see those enlarged images in a efficient way. And maybe you set your blind jury to inactive so that you can actually reference artist names. And I'll save all those settings there. All right, once you've set that up, you're going to log into your juror account. So I'll log out here, and then I'm going to log into this one. This is now the jury portal. So I've logged in with a different username at the same login page, and I can come in here and view it as a juror. Under current event, I'll choose the call I am reviewing. I will then select my scorecard view preference. I'm going to actually choose thumbnail scorecard, and I'll show you why. But there's just some different options here. Then I'm going to click on applications, the number of applications. I'm going to click on that number to open up the scorecard. So I'm going to open it up. It's actually going to go into a new window that you can't see at the moment. It's a pop-up window, but let me put it into a new tab for you. There we go. So this is what the scorecard looks like. And this is the first application in the list. So I can, like I did before, I can go in, click on the work sample. And now in this case, I get a nice enlarged image. I can actually also zoom in and out of the artwork. I can click and drag it. So this gives you a little bit better preview of the artwork than you did on the admin side. I can even click it to view its full screen on my computer, and I can view all the details here. So this is what it looks like for the jurors, and I can then go, click next. And let's say I wasn't a real juror for this, but I was just an administrator. I can, if it's eligible, I can click yes. And if it's not eligible, I can click no. And then what I can do is use those scores just as an admin. I can use those scores to separate ineligible applications from the ones that are going to be moving forward into the jury. So let's say I did that. I, go through and I saved the score. I viewed the next one. I'm doing this initial review process. I'm, seeing if things are allowed to be in or not. Once I've scored all of the entries, I will actually go back to the admin side. And, oh, that's not the right one. This one. I'll go back to the jury administration portal. I'll use those scores, and either I can come here, I can come here and click viewed score applications. Let's say I just had a handful of people that were not eligible. I can come to this list and I can individually update them to not invited. You can only have these options instead of the admin side, but you can change it to not invited because it's not eligible. And I could do it this way, or I can go full on jury mode and use the scores that I gave to sort and change statuses to not invited for everyone that, didn't, that aren't eligible, that I voted no because they're not eligible. And I would do that whole process. I'm going to show this process in a second here, so I'm not going to do it now, but that would essentially be the workflow. You would review it as an admin, you would score anything, and you would separate those in the initial review. Once you're done, though, what you need to do is come here and I'll hide the list here. Come to your jurors list, and you'll see here, this is as me as an admin. Let's say I scored this 34 just for a review. I would actually go in and click this trash can to remove the scores so that they don't get accounted for in the actual jury. I just did a review process. I don't need the scores anymore. I've figured out who's not eligible, and I can do that. I'm actually going to restore the scores, though, because I need them for the next step, but that would be the workflow. So I know it's a little bit more complicated, but it does give you a little bit better view of the artwork and allows you to enlarge those images a little bit better. So that's how you review the artwork ahead of time. So I hope that helped. So the next question that we have, again, it's about the jury. So this will all be about the jury for the end of till the end of the webinar. So the next question is, how do I manage a call? Oh, there's actually 3 questions left. How do I manage a call where an artist can enter more than one image, but no more than one image per artist can be accepted? Is there a way for a blind jury to see all the entries together from one artist? In this scenario, there's some extra context. We're currently having to send the jurors a spreadsheet listing the entries and having to go back and forth with jurors several times to ensure that one artist does not have more than one entry accepted. This is difficult and time consuming. Is there a better way? So again, to kind of reframe this, if you're accepting multiple artwork per artist, but only, a specific artist can only be accepted with one artwork. There is a couple ways to do this, but they are a little bit of workaround ways. So the best way or the best tip I can provide is really to come in the jury page when you're setting things up. And I would make sure you're sorting it by artist's last name so that at the very least, because it is a blind jury, at the very least, all of the artist's work will be right one after another, and so hopefully the juror can decipher a little bit based on the artwork style and some of the info given that maybe a couple of these pieces that are next to each other were submitted by the same artist. So if you just sort by artist's last name and do the blind jury, then that's like the best way to set yourself up. Then you can combine that with your spreadsheet method to ensure that no artists have more than one entry accepted. There's a couple other tips, though, I have for this. One of them is I guess I have one tip for this, is to use tags. So in the events management section, when you go to the list of applications, you can actually, I need to move a couple of these back here. Give me just a second. Because I have tags here to demonstrate. You can set up tags for artists that have multiple entries. So you can see here, this Julia Alvarez artist has 3 separate entries. They applied once and they have 3 different artwork images. You can create a tag, such as this one, that will denote the artist and that they have separate pieces. So it's like essentially saying, and you could use a different type of tag to notify, but artist A, here's their first piece. Artist A, here's their second piece. Artist A, here's their third piece. So it's kind of a way of anonymizing the name of the artist and telling the juror, that these pieces belong together because they all belong to artist A. And if they don't have a tag, they are independent and the juror doesn't need to worry about it. They're either in or out. But then you would move on and you would create more tags. So to create a tag, you just go into the application and you would create the tag here. And you would, I would just repeat this one, but you would type in the tag and click save, and that would do that. So that on the juror side, again, I have to go back in here and I'll show you what it looks like. When they open up the scorecard, they will see the tag right here, artist A1. So as they review, they can pay attention to this tag and make sure, okay, I see it's artist A. If I were to save a score and go to the next one, that's also artist A, so I can't say yes to that, or, they have to figure out which one they want to accept. So the tags is one way to communicate to the juror with doing a blind jury. Here's an artist and here's all their pieces. It is a little bit of a tedious process having to go through all your entries and tagging them, but it is a way to make sure that they can see that on the juror side. So that's my tip for that answer of the question. There's not the best way of doing that at the current moment. I do like the spreadsheet method, but I understand that there's a little bit of back and forth. So that's how those tags might help a little bit. Okay. Our next question, second to last question. Do I have to individually mark each applicant as invited or not invited, or can the jurors' rating designate those groups? The answer to this is absolutely not. That you do not have to individually mark each applicant as invited or not invited. But it is a great question because it's kind of part of CaFé's whole system for jurying. It allows you to do this in a much easier process than individually marking applications. So I'm going to give you a quick tutorial of how to do this. However, we don't have a whole lot of time to go through it as I would, a juror training. But we have some help guides to help you there. So I would just go to that help center here and click on the jury process. And this gives you a step-by-step instructions on how to conduct your jury, specifically this manage step, which was what we're going to go through today. We also have a webinar if you're interested, and I will put that in the chat here. This gives you those step-by-step instructions in a video format. I'll put this in the link in the description of our recording as well. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how to do this, not individually. When you are ready to sort your applications, again, this happens in the jury admin process. Select the call. You'll see that the jury administration page is set up into 3 steps. We have setup, manage, finalize. Setup is everything that happens before the juror scores. You go in and you set up your settings for the jury, the jurors' accounts, you create those. Then the juror will go in and score. Once they've scored and everything, every application has a score, you'll go to the manage step. And this is where the magic happens. So you will come here, and the first thing you're going to do is click change status to not invited. Now this is the step where you're going to change all of the lower scored applications to not invited. Click on the categories to make sure that it's, all the categories are selected. Then what you'll want to do here is pay attention to the minimum cutoff score. Any entry with a score below the cutoff will be moved to not invited. So if you have a numerical scoring system like 1 through 7 or 1 through 20, you'll want to determine what cutoff score is going to give you the results you want, meaning let's say you just want to narrow down the selections, and you know that anyone that scored below a 5 for 1 through 7 should not be included in the jury, should not be anyone who scored below let's say a 4. Anyone who scored below a 4 will not continue to the next round or will be eliminated. You're going to set your minimum cutoff score to 4 so that anyone who scored below a 4 will get cut off or will get eliminated. But if you have a yes, no, maybe scoring system like we have here, what you'll want to do is know that a yes is equal to a score of 3, a maybe is equal to a score of 2, and a no is equal to a score of 1. So you're going to set your cutoff score to that accordingly. So let's say in this round, I only want to eliminate anyone that scored a no, meaning anyone that scored below a maybe is going to be not invited. So anyone below a 2. I know that was kind of long-winded. So in this case, my minimum cutoff score is 2, so that anyone who scored below a 2, aka below a maybe, will be eliminated. So I'll set that cutoff score, and it's going to update, and this is where it's going to show you that quantity of, who scored certain amounts. 17 have a score of no, so that's the number it's giving me, and if I click show applications, it's going to show that to me. It's going to say, here's all the no's. And then what I would do in this step to just change everybody, I would just verify everything looks good, and I would click change status. And these folks will then go to the not invited status. And if I go to events management, I can see that we've got 17 in not invited. And that's how you do it all at once. Now, these folks are just moved to the not invited status. They're not actually eliminated from the call. They're not notified that they're not invited. You're going to do that later. they're just eliminated here. Or they're just put into the not invited status. So if you made a mistake, you can just click, you can change all applications back to received and start over and do the process again, no problem. But that's how you do that first step. Once you've moved everyone to not invited, you're going to then come back to this manage tab and go change status to invited. And this is where you're going to move everyone that did score high enough to the invited status. In this case, you have a maximum cutoff score. The maximum cutoff score means any entry scored above the cutoff score here is going to be moved to invited. And you'll see the default is set to 0, and that's because it's just saying you've already moved folks to not invited. Everyone that's left is going to be invited, so it doesn't matter their actual score. As long as they're above a 0, they will be invited. So that's the process for this one, and you just click Show Applications, and you can see that these are those people that were either scored maybes or yeses because we included those to be invited. And I'll just click Yes or Change Status. And again, in events management, we'll see now we have 0 in received, but we have it separated between not invited and invited. Some folks like to do a round 2 of scoring in between those 2 steps, and that just allows you to further narrow down the selections. So once you come here and check to make sure they're separated out, you're good to go, and you can move forward with the next process. If you do have anyone left in received, any stragglers of sorts, they might not have actually received a score by the juror, and that means they wouldn't have been taken into account with the maximum and minimum cutoff scores. So if that's the case, you'll want to work with your juror to make sure they have a score and that you know where to put them. I'm going to get right into our final question, which goes into the same next phase of this process. So the final question that was submitted to us is, we are in the beginning stages of jurying, so I'd like to hear a refresher on closing the jury process, notifying artists, and closing the call. So let's do it kind of quickly. Again, we have a help guide for this whole process, which is called Wrap Up Your Call in the Help Center. So you can come here and review all these step-by-step instructions. We also have the following webinar that goes through all of this stuff in more detail. Because I have to rush through it, I highly recommend going to that webinar to view it in full detail about this entire process. But let's actually just touch on what these stages, what the process is here. So back in the jury administration page, you'll see we have that final tab here to go to, which is the finalize tab. So this, you should come here once you've sorted everyone into not invited and invited. So you'll see here, basically this is just a list of reminders for the steps that you need to take. And this is the same steps that are in this, this Wrap Up Your Call guide. The first step is to notify your artist of the results. So if you click go to emailer, what it's going to do is take you to the events communication. You can also get there by going events and communication. So here's where you're going to send one email to the batch of not invited artists and one email to the batch of invited artists. I don't have enough time to go through it, but if I were to click not invited and click draft email, I can fill out this form, and I'm essentially creating one generic email that says, unfortunately, you've not been invited to this event, and you would just, preview and send that message. Then you would come back and you would do the same process, but for the invited folks, and you would draft that email, again, kind of generic, saying, congrats, you've been invited. When they receive these emails, they will have some information auto-populated for them so that they can differentiate the title of the pieces that were invited versus the title of pieces that were not invited. If this is a scoring by art, individual art call, they might get 2 emails, one listing all of their not invited pieces and then one listing their invited pieces. So just be aware of that. So once you've sent your notifications, you'll come back to jury administration and move on to the next step of the finalizing stage, which is saving each round scoring history. This is optional. So if you want to be able to just save a spreadsheet of the scores, you can, download the scores there just for your records, or for being able to reference, you can save that there. But the next definitely not optional step is a reminder here to go back to the setup page and change your jury status to complete. So it'll take me back to the setup process, and I just go to jury status and change that to complete. This is that highly important step, because not only does it tell the artist on their CaFÉ profile, now it will reveal the status. So during the jury, it kind of puts up a curtain, but once you change it to complete and click save, the artist will now be able to see the official status of their artwork, and they'll be able to see, a breakdown of which pieces were invited and not invited. So that is why it's an important step. It's also important because once this is set to complete, the system will allow artists that were not invited to archive their application so that they can move on with their lives and just archive that application. So make sure you do change that to complete. And that's the process of wrapping up the call. So you just have to take those 3 steps: notifying the artists, saving the history if you want it, and changing their jury status to complete. And that will wrap up the process for you. And you can move on to collecting the artwork, getting it shipped to you, or whatever the process is for your project. There are a couple extra steps though that you can do. One is you can request a download of the images. So if you just want to get those image files so that you can use it in your web promotion or an online exhibition, you can go to the tickets and fill out this form. Under issue, you'll select image request. And then when you write your message, you can let us know, which images you want. You want just the invited images, maybe you want all of the images. And you can let us know if you want the artist names included in the image file. That will allow us to pull the correct images that you want from the system and send you a link to download those high resolution images. So that's a really nice step to be able to kind of gather all the materials that you need. Another extra step you can do is if you need any reporting of the actual event or the applications, you can come to events management. Let's say maybe I want to pull some information about my invited folks, and under download spreadsheet and download PDF, you have a few different report options to be able to download, contact info, application answers, information about the artwork itself, those kinds of things. It might be nice to take off of CaFÉ and use however you need it. The final extra step, which you'll have to take at some point, is asking the CaFÉ team to archive the event itself, archive the call. So after your event or exhibition or project is completed and you don't need to access the call as much or as frequently, you can ask us to archive it. What that will do is that will simply move it from the current event section up here to the archived event list so that you can keep this current event list a little bit more current. And archiving it just allows us to keep track of the actual current events that are operating in CaFÉ. So again, you can submit a ticket and just choose general question here and just write that you would like to archive the call, and we'll put that in the archived menu for you. So that's in a very quick process, how to wrap up your call. Again, we have some more resources about those individual steps. This concludes our Q&A webinar. I hope your questions have been answered and that you've learned something new. And if you have any in-depth questions about your call or any lingering questions after today, feel free to email us at cafehelp@weststaff.org. There's the email, and we'd be happy to answer them for you. Thanks again for joining us.